everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is the 11th of May, 2022. I hope everyone is doing fantastically well. I had to mute the online as it fed the online. I had to go find it and mute it. So sorry about that. I just wanted to introduce everyone that is on the panel today. Today we have April, who has joined us back after being out on vacation last week. So good evening, April. She is a psychic and has quite a few modalities of healing, Reiki, massage therapy, etc. And is a spiritual teacher, has been a constant member on our Facebook Live panel. Good evening, April. And then we have Ken, who has joined us right on time. He made it. Good evening, Ken. Ken is part of our group meditators. And Francesca is here on her little girl's birthday. We are so honored, Francesca. Thank you so much. She's part of our group meditators. Good evening, Francesca. And we have Patricia as well. Good evening, Patricia. Thank you so much for joining, especially considering the circumstances that you're under. So grateful. So let me go find the question of today. It's going to be one of those convoluted questions, April. It's going to be like a Lakshmi kind of question. So here's the question. I was trying to understand for quite some time that if everything is God's will, why are people punished or gifted for their karmas? And another thing is, if whatever happens with us in life is meant to happen, then why not we take a shortcut for everything? Because eventually, whatever the outcome is, it was meant to happen. Why do we work hard then to achieve success and goals? Can someone please clear my understanding on these two concepts? It's a very interesting question. So I'm going to go moderate, like find the people online. So I'll be back. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to try to break this down. This question, if everything is God's will, then why are people punished or gifted for their karmas? The phrase in this context, in this little top section here, everything is God's will in the context that everything happens for a reason, that everything is part of the grander plan. So being punished or gifted for our karmas, that's based off of the individual soul and the individual soul's actions, behaviors, reactions per lifetimes. But everything is God's will, that comes into play. So the things that you go through in your lifetime, the things that you experience, all move you towards expansion. That's where the God's will comes in. So you may have a very difficult lifetime, but it is to expand your soul, and that's where the God's will comes in. You're given free will here to experience life. You're given free will to have different lifetimes, different experiences. So the God's will is that we will move towards love and loving each other and, unity and oneness. But in that process, we are gifted free will. So it's not necessarily that God's will means we don't have free will. That's one thing to keep in mind in this. So another thing is, if whatever happens to us is meant to happen, then why not take shortcuts? So I hinted on that above, where I said, everything that it happens is meant to happen, and that it's meant to happen is part of God's plan. So I go through my troubles, I go through my hard times, because it leads me to the moment where I become enlightened. It leads me to that moment where I start searching, where I start asking the whys and the hows and the what fors, which moves me down the spiritual path. And then this one, I'm trying to see, like, why not take a shortcut for everything? Because
It's like a fatalistic kind of question, like as though they're believing in fate and saying it's going to happen anyway. Why should I even make the effort to be spiritual? Right. So you have to explain why should they
well,
be.
no, that phrase right there, no, because you can remember, we've talked about how you can be in second grade and you don't get to go to third grade of life school until you've completed second grade, but you can do second grade a million times. There's no, again, it's free will. So yes, it is God's will, creator's will, source's will. It's actually the universe's impulse to expand and to grow. But however, you can do kindergarten, second grade, is you don't have to succeed. You don't have to achieve. You don't have to evolve. But eventually the soul does get tired of what we call, or what we understand here as karma, which karma we've talked about is a much bigger concept, but the soul gets tired of that. And the soul actually is meant to come here and to grow. So there's difference between like your purpose. You have a purpose that drives you. We all have a purpose. We all have something that we are trying to work towards. And whether the human loses track of that or not, the soul never loses track of it. So it will actually propel you forward to work harder, to achieve. Now, some people in this lifetime become too wounded to move forward, to grow in this lifetime. They just have too much that happens. The soul has taken on too much. So it will seem like in this question, like, why should I work so hard? Why should I even do this? What does it even matter? But the soul always does want to move forward and to grow and to expand, which again is the natural impulse of source, of creation. So what did I miss, Poonam? Anything?
So when they say it's God's will, I don't think it's God's will to punish, right? Those two words are actually not accurate. God's
Yeah.
will, why are people punished? There's nothing called punishment. It's just that
Right.
it is the law of karma is cause and effect. We are causing the effect through our reaction to whatever unconscious behavior that is happening. We are causing that effect. Our soul is still not learning. Like if somebody's making us angry, this person one made us angry, then person two is going to make us angry, right? And we're getting angered. That is our anger is causing person two to be angry towards us. I'm simplifying it, right?
Yeah. And this is great question for Kelly. Thankfully he is here today. So
It's not God's will to punish.
you said something that made me, okay. Humans, we have been taught for such a long time that God is this being up in the sky with this long beard, and he is looking to put us in the corner or to punish us. But that's not actually what God is. God is not there to punish us, to give us reward and to punish us. That's not his role. But we've been taught, if we're good, then we will be blessed. And if we're not, we will be punished. So it is more about positive and negative, and it is more about our soul path and then our reactions to things, or our not reacting to things, and how we are taking things. So that is more of a thing that we've been taught, is that God will punish us, our universe is punishing us, versus a lot of it too is us growing as people, as individuals, and taking responsibility for our actions, for our choices.
And why not we take a shortcut for everything? Because eventually whatever is the outcome is what, that's not true as well, because we were co-creating. If it was a bad outcome, we couldn't take the shortcut, right? If you took the shortcut.
Yeah, but there really is, again, there's no shortcut. I mean, you can choose to take the shortcut, but you will have to do it again. And you'll have to do it again. We all have to go through the levels. We all have to go through the levels at some point or another in our evolution, in our journey back to oneness. We all have to go. So there is not a shortcut. Now, in this lifetime, you can choose to take a shortcut. But if you also note that, why do we work hard to achieve? There's a hint of almost like a depression in this statement, almost like a letting down, like I've tried, and why do I try to achieve? Why do I even have goals? Why am I even doing this? There's a little hint of that in here. So this to me is a person that, one, is thinking a lot. They're doing a lot of inner thinking, but it sounds like they have been through quite a bit in their life, and they're wondering, like, what is this all for, and why does it have to be so hard, and why should I even do this? The reason that we do this is to grow, and is to learn acceptance, and to learn forgiveness, to move us towards oneness, towards love. And these difficult things that you're going through, those are the things, those are the lessons that you came here to learn. So again, when I said the shortcut thing, you can't take the shortcut, because then you will be caught. And they tell you that for people that have NDEs, they go back and they're like, I could do this 1,000 times. I could have this life 1,000 times. It's like the Groundhog's Day. But when I finally get tired of that and want to make a change, then I'll quit taking the shortcut.
Incredible. Thank you so much, April. Real quick, did you want to explain what the soul does? Like, it separates from God and then takes birth here, so that people can understand that lesson that you're talking about, that second grade will be repeated as much as possible until we graduate to. Why is that? Why did you say that?
Why did I say?
I understand it, but anybody that's new may not understand it, right? So the whole soul separation and taking birth part. Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know how, like, I explained it before. I feel like one other time I explained it very well, and this time I don't know. So the idea is that source was one, and then the one split, and it kept splitting and kept dividing, each still holding a piece of the original one. So you can look at that as what happens when a baby, a human, is formed. We have 2 cells and they become 1 trillion cells. You can also look at that as the Big Bang. when we were one, and then we exploded and we fractalized into all these souls. And the reason that that happened was because the idea behind this is that Source had this thought that it wanted to experience itself. As one, it knew all, but it could not experience all. It just knew all. It had all the knowledge. In order to actually experience all, I have to come down here. Well, we created it here on Earth, and I have to live a life to actually experience, because I can't actually know something until I really experience it. I can have the knowledge, but it's not tangible. I can't actually really know it until I have the experience. So your soul signed up to have those experiences, and each billions and billions, trillions of souls have signed up for different experiences. The idea, though, is that to reach oneness, to get back to that whole, you will have to experience all of them, all of the different experiences. So I have to be a man at some point to understand what it's like to be a man. I have to experience that. I have to be a woman. I have to be, I have to be different races. I have to be different sizes in different countries. So you will come back each time gaining more and more knowledge in effort to experience it for the one, as the one is learning about itself through you in your experiences. So if I have a certain task that I've decided to experience, and I go through the grade, but I don't fully learn that lesson, then I have to do the grade again, and then the grade again, until I do actually learn that lesson, that full experience. So that's what I
Beautiful.
meant.
Incredible. Thank you so much, April. You always put it in simple terms, so that's why I insisted. Grateful for the guidance. So Kelly and Kelly have joined us. There are one and only Qigong teachers on this panel. So Kelly and Kelly, I saw Caesar join as well. So I posted, both of you have the question, right? So are able to see the question. So if y'all want to take it away, thank you.
Is she talking about us or Caesar?
Or which one of us, Caesar or Kelly and I?
Kelly
Oh,
and Kelly.
Okay. Very well said, April. A couple short answers first. Yeah, that's my joke. First of all, there's no such thing as a shortcut. That was a great analogy, April. Repeating grades is a great way of looking at soul evolution. And this is sort of the basic question of like, why do bad things happen to good people? And the thing is, everyone has in their energy field, in their spiritual evolution, lessons that they have to learn. Even if they're, law-abiding citizens and they're really good people, they also have the entire family karma in their energy field. So if there's something in the family energy, in the family lineage that has not been resolved, and someone is energetically, spiritually deciding to evolve in this lifetime, they will have to face that information, and they will have to bring to the surface the pain, the family karma, the stagnant energy, the stagnant level of awareness that has sat inside the family lineage, inside the family blood, however you want to look at it, for generations, until a person decides to change. And again, the concept of, as April said, we have been taught for thousands of years in the West that God punishes. And, Old Testament God is very much like, well, the God of blood and fire of the ancient days, and the cults of Moloch and Baal, where people were punished for, sacrifice for being, quote unquote, bad people, or not agreeing with, whatever story was going on at the time. But that's a history lesson for another time. in my experience of spiritual evolution, we punish ourselves because we've been so conditioned to judge and restrict our ability to feel our hearts. We've been conditioned to disconnect ourselves energetically from our bodies, from our hearts, from our ability to feel. We've been programmed with these stories and these limited belief systems in such a way that it severs our connection with our heart and our spirit and our ability to connect with source. And spiritual evolution is all about courage and discipline. Spiritual evolution is all about being emotionally responsible. And there's no shortcuts for that. It's a lot of hard work. And this is why people are constantly looking for shortcuts, is because they're scared of being responsible and of actually being present with themselves. Because at first it is really scary because there's a lot to feel. And it takes courage to overcome that. It takes courage to actually sit with ourselves, which is literally the entire definition of Zen. That is like literally anything and everything that you'd ever need to understand about Zen and Zen Buddhism is literally just sitting with yourself. That is it. And that's the whole point of prayer, meditation, qigong, yoga, working out with weights, going for a run or a walk, or being out in nature. It's all about coming back to ourselves and being able to feel ourselves no matter what's going on. So, and again, the concept of God's will is, as April pointed out, it's really the universe. And it's really the universe reflecting back at us what we are holding in our minds, our self-judgments, our victim issues, because we project those outwards if we're not aware and if we aren't in our hearts. And if we don't still the mind and don't still ourselves, then we're constantly throwing all of our baggage out at someone like we're fishing to see who will actually bring it back to us and get us to actually see or feel or both what we're actually holding on to. And this is what human interaction is all about. And this is why communication is so important to understand, and especially communication with ourselves. How we communicate with ourselves is all about how we are or are not throwing our stuff out at other people in the hopes that we actually get caught and called on it and stopped and addressed to take care of our own stuff. And this is why we have relationships. I mean, this is one of the big things that Kelly and I continuously go through. There's no if, ands, or buts or questions about that reality between the two of us, which is great. But sometimes it's just like, can we like pause and go to commercial break? Because I don't know if I can deal with this right now. But that's where communication comes in. Yeah, that's where communication comes in. And why being present with ourselves and being emotionally responsible and being able to listen to our will and where that's actually coming from, where those stories are coming from, where that belief in those stories and that ego attachment to those stories that constantly seek validation are actually coming from. And it's that attachment to needing validation that actually causes chaos in our lives. If we're constantly projecting outwards at other people and we're not doing our own laundry, then, we're going to have chaos. We're going to have other people entering our lives to literally throw our laundry back at us and go, this isn't mine, this is yours. So, and people will look at that as punishment. Well, I'm a good person, I didn't mean that. It's like, well, but if you're holding on to something, if you're holding on to anger, fear, judgment, anxiety, any of those permutations of the expression of the energy of fear and that programming and those stories of limited belief structures, then you're throwing them out at people are going to come back at you. People will enter your lives to show you what is actually going on. And this is where everything outside of us is a mirror, because if we're throwing stuff out into the world, it will be reflected back at us. This is why being present is so important, so that we don't get caught up in a trigger when we get triggered, when something gets thrown back at us. And that's where the
Mhm.
strength and discipline comes in.
I was going to say that's also, I think, where people feel like they're being punished
Yes.
too, is when something is reflected back at you. You can feel like that's a punishment, or that we judge that we've done something wrong because this has happened to us. I think of the one thing, like April, you and April so far, I don't have anything to add more than, I think also with attachment, because you talked about attachment, was that we sometimes get attached to an outcome. Because I was just reading the last part where, because eventually whatever the outcome is meant to happen, but we can get fixated on what we think that's supposed to look like,
Yep.
rather than saying, well, this is where I'd like to be. But oftentimes when I've been fixated on what something in my life is supposed to look like, then when it doesn't happen, that's where we experience like the disappointment, or why did I work so hard and I'm not getting anywhere, or whatever. Whereas if you leave yourself open to, this is what I would like to do, this is where I want to be, but be open to not fixating on what you think it's supposed to look like, because what you can end up with can be so much better if you're not trying to make it look like anything in particular. And that's, I think, where some of our attachments come from,
Mhm.
is that we think our life is supposed to look a certain way, or we're supposed to feel a certain way all the time.
Yep.
And then we experience these disappointments, but we've kind of done that to ourselves because we've been holding on to this idea, and it's just an idea.
Mhm.
But sometimes life can be so much better if we just let go of what we thought, right? Because then when you go back to it, it's always about thinking, what we're thinking too much.
Mhm. Yeah, when you're actually feeling, when you're actually centered and present with yourself, you actually experience more anger, more fear, more anxiety and judgment that comes to the surface to be cleared, because you have built that strong discipline and that strong awareness with yourself in being present, that you've actually created more space. You've created a crucible. And this is one of the things that your heart is supposed to be, is this great translator of information. And your heart is supposed to translate and transmute all of the information that you are receiving and everything that comes up to the surface. Because remember, we have many experiences that will bring up information either from this life or past lives. And I'm going to say past lives because some of us, have had to. I felt like sometimes I have repeated grade 2 a few times in the past. And the repetition and experiencing things by observing other people going through something similar that you've been through in the past will deepen that awareness and will allow you to scrub down through even more layers of awareness and information that come up to the surface. So one of the misconceptions in terms of, in great analogy in terms of how we get attached to things and attached to outcomes, and especially in the spiritual journey, people, and this is not exactly a pet peeve, but I just, people who go on and on about bliss and joy and how that's the way being connected to spirit is. There's a deep level of contentment. There's a very deep level of contentment and satisfaction and a profound clarity of alignment. But as I said, when you are actually strong in spirit and your connection to your heart, that will bring up even more emotional information so that it can be cleared. The stronger you get with yourself, the more you will be challenged by your own information, but also by other people whose egos cannot stand the fact that you are different energetically. 3 cents? 4?
About 8 cents or so. Thank you, Kelly and Kelly.
Whoa, it's
great.
going up in value.
Almost got to $1. All right.
It's incredible. So I like the fact that you said that we are the ones that, it's not punishment, we are the ones that are creating it, right? As
Yep.
far as the outcome is concerned, we've talked about it on this
Oh.
panel
Oh.
quite a few times, that here she says, another thing is if whatever happens with us in life is meant to happen, that's not how it is. We are co-creating what is happening to us. Take responsibility for what
Yes,
we
exactly.
are co-creating, right?
Yes.
So we have the,
Yep.
in this present moment, when I'm totally in presence, I have the free will to change what is going to happen to me. This is where I'm making the choice in this present moment, right?
Yep.
So that's what the work is all about. As Dr. Joe Dispenza, since April always brings up Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Byron Katie says it's about doing the work. We do the work so that we can change the outcome of the future, right? But that choice
I
is
like to
made in
call it
this.
active participation.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I like to call it active participation.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect. Yes. Active participation. Thank you, Kelly and Kelly. Caesar, you've been away from us for a few weeks. Thank you so much for joining. Caesar is a channel and a spiritual teacher, is always here on the Q&A panel. You want to take it away, Caesar? Add something to what April and Kelly said. Thank you.
Yeah, beautifully put by everybody. Loved it. So yeah, everything is energy. Quite simply match the frequency of the reality that you're looking for at the end of the day, in a nutshell. Until you have the perception that nothing is good or bad, we're not being punished nor rewarded. It's difficult to maneuver through life and not get caught up in the obstacles or as Left Kelly said, the attachment to the outcome. One of the yeah, not having Eckhart talks about destination. Getting caught up in the arrival of something or the goal, and that's you can get yourself in a little mental trouble that way. Just allow things to be as they are. How they turn out without the expectation of the outcome. Pretty simple. And then you'll find yourself not let down. And you can still be equally excited, whatever the outcome is, if you choose to be. And we, like we said, everything is energy. So you match the frequency of the reality of which you desire. And most of that is probably high vibing stuff, because we understand that when you're vibing low, when you have thoughts of worry or fear, stuff like that, you're going to get that back in some form, some way. And at the end of the day, we're hoping that we can learn lessons from them bad things or the things that make us feel uncomfortable, because our greatest lessons comes from the things that, affect us the most in any way, typically uncomfortably, because it allows us to reflect on it and we actually feel it. And that allows us to actually turn inside and then make a change and learn something from it and move on to the next lesson. Everything's an opportunity. There's a deep lesson in everything that we do, I feel. Around every corner, everything we do, it seems like there's something profound there waiting. So I try to stay excited in every moment and literally try to do the most exciting thing available in the moment. And that leads you to the next moment, what you're supposed to be doing. And that's equally as exciting. But the key is to not have the attachment to the outcome. Have no, don't have no perceptions of what the outcome's supposed to look like. Just do the most exciting thing available to you. It might be sitting down reading a book. Doesn't sound very exciting, but if that's the most exciting thing and you enjoy that, and that's the most available thing to you or most exciting thing available to you in the moment, do that, because that leads you into the next moment. Stay excited. And I'm always trying to be excited about what's next. It's like constantly turning corners and like the boogeyman's there, but it's a good boogeyman. We'll call it Santa Claus, around every corner. So just try to stay excited. And there is no good or bad. That's, until the mind makes it out, we know this. A matter of getting through life we're going to arrive at the same destiny. That's a fact. It's a matter of if you go like this or like this, how many walls do you bounce off to get there is the question. But I don't have too much more to add. I mean, them guys put it quite beautifully.
Thank you so much, Caesar. One of the things, I don't know if anybody has heard of Michael Murdat. Have y'all heard of him? He's somebody that talks about soul and soul contracts. And he says, you may think that that we've corrected something, but we eventually start writing new soul contracts by another reactivity. If you had another reactivity with another 4 or 5 people, right? So we had already had soul contracts with whatever souls, our father, mother, brother, sister, all of these people that we were born and the soul group that we were born in. But then we start having reactivity with the service advisor or somebody else. So we start writing new soul contracts. So he was kind of pointing, don't write new soul contracts. So you're being excited, make sure that we don't write another soul contract, that we are dissolving, like cutting the cord, right? We are ending the relationship at every interaction, that it's clean, there's no karmic debt, and you're clean and you're moved on to the next one, right? So beautiful. Y'all are on fire today. Thank you. Francesca, did you want to say something about this? Something arose for you? Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Poonam. Thank you, everybody. Wow. What wealth of wisdom. Like Poonam said, you guys are all on fire. And what a giant question to contemplate on, whoever wrote that question, I myself have been there in my contemplation. I'll just briefly with what Poonam talked about in relation to, when we can end, old contracts and so forth, but we're also at the same time creating new contracts. This is why I'm going to the last part of the question first. This is why it is so important not to do any shortcuts during this journey, because in order to not create new soul contracts or new negative karma, or whatever word appeals to you, you have to be in that state of mindfulness. And in order to be in that state of mindfulness, it takes practice. There is no shortcutting or no other way around it, because we're here. One question I would recommend asking yourself is, who am I? When I asked that question, it took me many years to even receive an answer. And when I did, back in 2018, I call it, my conversation with God, I learned that, I am consciousness here to experience and express myself. I'm like, oh my God, like a part of me knew that it made sense, but yet it was like so big. I was like, oh my God, yes, that makes sense. And then I went into this entire conversation, this journey. And this is where, my conversation with God took place. I asked giant questions. I literally went from country to country because my questions were so huge. It's like, okay, sure. So if your consciousness, here to experience and express yourself, I got to see, in the process, like there isn't even any separation, between darkness and light. It's our minds that actually causes that separation, consciousness experiencing and expressing itself means infinite possibility in all of its forms, right? And the universe doesn't think the way we do. Like, I think it was Caesar that mentioned, everything is energy. everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, right? And so the universe can feel us. The universe can see us, feel us more than we can feel, and we are aware of ourselves. And, you know, I joke around, I joke about it, and I put up quotes because I'm like, you know, it's actually funny to me, because it's like, you know, that's why you can't fool the universe, right? Because you could say something and oh my God, you could swear by it, you know, die came down come, yeah, you know what? I am not that person. That person is that person. You can judge or do whatever it is, hide, or however many masks the egoic state of mind has come up with, or you know, you've come up with to hide. At the end of the day, the universe can feel you. And you are the universe. That's the beautiful thing. But, you know, again, this all happened for me in 2018. Before my conversation with God, I went through what we call in Buddhism a purification process. And during that purification process, I don't know. The way I verbalize it is, it was revealed to me. I don't know. You know, the universe showed me, right? Because again, I always had giant questions, so I normally always, you know, the Buddha said to question everything anyway. So, you know, I ask and you shall receive is one of my favorite mantras, right? And I during the purification process, as I was coming out of it, I felt guided to pick up my pen and my book, and I started drawing. And when I started drawing, I drew this diagram of the spine, you know, and in the spine, there is the energy field that's moving, you know, that's coiled around it. And so I was shown, you know, I call it the day that the darkness fell in love with me and I fell in love with it. But this has been a process, to be really honest, that's been happening throughout my journey. And just, you know, it kind of came to a beautiful, beautiful experience that night. And I was shown that in the beginning of time, you know, there was a short circuiting of our Kundalini energy, resulting in a split in our consciousness, giving rise to our cycle of suffering. And whilst we still have in place, you know, that higher conscious state, you know, that ability to be the essence of who we truly are, which is the Christ, the divine, whoever appeals to you, or whatever, you know, deity whose consciousness you want to tap into, while we have the ability to do that, right, which we can with practice, of course, you know, this short circuiting, this other part of us, you know, the split in our consciousness, we also have the ability to do the things that we've been doing, you know, in the lower realms, for a lack of a better word, right? You know, we have free will, right? And so because of that, you know, there's actually a whole description in great details of this other side, this, you know, we call it, some people call it the darkness, or, you know, that whatever you want to call it, you know, us here in this human form, let's see me here today with my egoic state of mind turned on, and, you know, I'm thinking, the thinker, right? And I'm operating based on my limiting beliefs and conditioning, you know, that my very own egoic state of mind conditioned me into being, right? And you know, these are like patterns that are ingrained in my subconscious mind, right? And so I automatically, here in this human form, if let's say I was driving and somebody, maybe, I don't drive for the record, but let's say some driver just, you know, cut in front of me, and I react and I start swearing at the person, blaming, you know, there I am again, operating on, I call it this side of the fence, right? The side of the fence where we're operating without mindfulness. We're trained to judge. We're trained to, and a lot of that training, believe it or not, we've trained ourselves to do it. Right? We were taught that's what we're supposed to do, because it's always, you know, we're taught to look outside of ourselves for everything, right? And so that's the way we become used to operating. Whereas when we start to practice, you know, without the shortcuts. And believe me, the lessons are hard if you try to take a shortcut. When we start to practice now, so we're moving from this split state of consciousness into what I call wholeness, right? We start to practice, we start to develop what in Buddhism we call it the right mind, the right understanding, the right view. And all of a sudden, as we move into that state of mindfulness, we start seeing, oh my God, we start to understand everything is energy. We start to understand how our own behaviors, our own thoughts, our own feelings contribute to the experiences that we're having outside of ourselves. And with that understanding, we actually, all of a sudden, we have the ability to dissolve those karmic contracts, right? To heal ourselves, to actually get to the root cause. Again, question everything, right? To ask the right questions, because if we're not equipped to ask the right question, we could be stuck in this loop, coming back over and over again, right? Until we learn the lessons or until we evolve, because again, we're consciousness here to experience and express ourselves, you know, and that's an infinite possibilities, all of our forms of expression, right? So, you know, behind me, I don't know if you guys could see it very well, that's a Tibetan tenka. And it basically shows us the path, you know, the little white road. And then on there, you see the monkey, which represents the egoic state of mind. There's a black elephant, you know, which represents the subconscious mind. Eventually, a black elephant becomes white, because as we do this inward journey from the head to the heart, and we start to pierce those veils of our subconscious mind, and we start to find that truth, you know, the essence, and experience the essence of who we truly are, that's when the elephant starts to become white. Eventually you see, you know, the hair on the elephant, and then, you know, by the seventh veil, you know, you see that the monkey actually humbly sits down. So in the beginning of the journey, the monk is at the end of the trail, right? Way behind, and it looks like he has a rope, you know, he's trying to catch that black elephant, and the monkey is way ahead of the elephant running, right? Because that's the reality of this, you know, other side of the fence that we've created. You know, the mind runs everything. We are the mind, we became the mind, you know, and that's what the monkey represents. And then on the Tibetan tenka, as the journey continues and the elephant becomes white, you will see that, you know, the monkey eventually sits down behind the elephant and the monk, right? And that's about the seventh veil. And that's when that fight between, you know, the egoic state of mind, I call it a fight because it feels like that some days. That's when the fight between the, you know, the monkey and the elephant stops, because this is a journey of trust, right? The egoic, the mind knows us, the universe knows us more than we know ourselves. And so the journey is about really the very core of it all. After all of that, and it's amazing what the mind comes up with as you're on the path. It comes down to trust and consistency, and just showing, building that relationship of trust, and showing, you know, feeling real compassion, not just talking about compassion, again, because the universe can feel you. And the only way you could really feel that real compassion is when you come into the right understanding. When you come into understanding and you start to recognize, oh my God, this is my energy, you know, my energetic imprint that attracted this experience to me. And oh my God, who am I? Because how am I reacting? How am I handling what this experience, this karmic experience, or this bad karma, or whatever you want to call it? How am I actually handling that experience? Am I yelling? Am I blaming? Or do I recognize, like, oh my goodness, this person is on their path, you know, where they're at in their journey? Do I have the ability to know when to interfere, if to interfere? Do I have the ability to stay calm and recognize that this person is coming from where they're at in their journeys, and it has nothing to do with you? All you are is that mirror reflecting back to them, or they're that mirror reflecting back to you. basically where you're at in your journey in any given moment of time, right? Everything is a mirror there to teach us something about ourselves. And shortcut, well, if you took a shortcut, you won't ask any questions, right? It's and if you decide, you know, hey, that's what, you know, I think Eckhart Tolle said this, and I always usually, you know, joke about it, because I always say that, you know, if you decide to, you know, yes, maybe I love the dark side, you know, and I just want to go and party and do whatever things they do out there now. I've kind of lost track a little bit because it's been so many years, you know. So whatever it is you think the dark side does, and you decide that's the life you want to live, at least, you know, if you're going to do it, then, and that's your choice, choose, you know what I mean, and enjoy it fully. And you know, that's maybe that's how you've decided to move through this world, you know. Or you could choose to make a difference, you know. And the Buddha, the Christ, you know, other, you know, Martin Luther King, there are many people that have done great things in this world. And it isn't through the shortcut method, you know. There is no shortcut. You have to evolve your state of consciousness if you're going to make a difference. So, you know, I invite you to ask yourselves the question, who am I? Why am I here? You know, and rather than me interfering further, I'll leave whoever it is that asks this question with those two questions. Who am I? Why am I here? You know, and sit with it, journal, get a journal and a pen. I love journal. I actually have, I don't know if you could see, but those are all journals, and there's a whole bunch in my closet too. You know, I'm a writer, I write. Hopefully I answered a question, or at least I shared some wisdom that will help you. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best in your journey.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Francesca. That was amazing. Mindfulness and having the right mind, meaning what Eckhart would say, right action would arise. And mindfulness in Eckhart's terms would be being present, being the alignment with your inner beingness. So
absolutely.
And that requires work.
Yes. Otherwise, like I said, like you can see on the Tibetan Think, the monkey is running the show, right? And if you're all mind and all thinking, well, we've seen the infinite possibility of the mind. Here we are today trying to save our environment because we've gone crazy. I'm sorry to say this, but sometimes I'm like, oh my God, human beings have gone crazy because we're killing ourselves and we can't even recognize it. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been feeding our own cycles of suffering, and we do this every day over and over again, and we don't recognize it. We do it every minute, every second of the day. And like Poonam said, presence is the only way for us to recognize, you know, being in that state of pure awareness, right? Is how we can recognize when we're, you know, what we're contributing to, how are we contributing to it, the mindfulness, right?
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you.
That's a summarized version of me trying to pack a whole bunch of stuff in a little.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Grateful for the wise words. Patricia, did you want to say something, or do you have any questions since Kelly and April are here? Any questions that arose for you?
No, that's okay. But I think I'd like Ken to say something first, if that's okay.
Okay.
Thank
Ken,
you.
did you want to start? And then Patricia can ask her questions.
Okay, thank you. No, it was a incredible, great question. I love how everybody answered this. It's amazing how the same question can be answered so differently from so many different people with their expression. And it's amazing that this very question of different things that I'm seeing or I've experienced And for the longest time in my life, probably I'm in my late 60s now, and until I was probably in my early 60s, things were still happening that I didn't quite understand. And then when I retired, then I went, okay, now I'm all set. Now I want to get all this together and everything's going to work really, really good. Ha ha. So it's something where as long as I was in my self-reliance, my thinking mind, I was going to continue doing the same things over and over and over and expect different results. And even though I would try to change things around, I was doing the same thing. And it's incredible how the question is that if everything is God's will, why are people punished or gifted for their karmas? And I used to be one of those thinking, I'm being punished. I'm born because I'm a bad person. And this whole concept of what unconditional love is why we're here. I honestly feel just like April had said, you know, in God's world first is I want to say cross the bridge into the world of consciousness and had to have some understanding of what that was. And if I wasn't, I was just going to continue to relapse with my human thinking and go back to what was familiar, even though it wasn't working. And in so many different areas of my life, whether it be relationship, whether it be working, whether it be, it talks about why do we work hard then to achieve success and goals? Well, for 40 years, I had a business. I was a workaholic. And I worked 70, 80 hours a week. And to me, that was normal. And I was a doing machine. And if I stayed still, I'm lazy. If I stayed still, I'm not productive. I wasn't following through. I criticized, I judged. And so there's so many things now that I can see where I was in my ego, in my quote, successful life. I realized that it didn't really amount to anything. In the last 6, 7 years, I'm now unlearning what I learned and realized that what I learned really wasn't important, that I need to feel with my heart, not think with my thinking mind. So it's just incredible now that realizing that now the pain and suffering is actually my teacher. It's actually healthy to get into that space where now I have gratitude for my uncomfortability and realizing that the uncomfortability was the shadow that I didn't want to feel because I thought I was being punished. And my thinking mind kept thinking that all these different things that I was doing were bad, wrong, negative, unloving. And I really didn't know what love was. My physical thinking mind kept confusing me, lying to me, and telling me all about the illusions. It just wasn't working. And that's why I hit a bottom. And I continue hitting bottoms because I'll climb, I'll get to one mountaintop, and I'll go, oh my God, I get it. Okay, well, before too long, you're going to be at the bottom again, climbing another mountain. And that's what I'm learning. And I can't live life without surrendering. I continue to surrender on a daily basis. I'm continuing to feel the subtle little shifts that happen continuously. So, and I'm learning, give myself a break. I don't have to keep at that grind the same way as I used to, but it's so easy to fall back into what's familiar. So it's, I just love being on this path now. I love it, even though I feel the uncomfortability and I know it's not going to last. And I now have tools. I go to meetings. I love being with other like-minded people. I know that there are solutions. A problem, it's a problem, but don't dwell on it. Don't keep thinking about it. So it's just a new design to live a life with meaning and with passion. So I just want to thank everybody for who you are and all the beautiful wisdom that had come out. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you.
I love the fact how you started examining your whatever is whatever experience is coming into your life. You've started examining it without blaming and figuring it out. How am I going to learn from this now in your 60s? Which is what we were meant to do. That whole thing that April was talking about, that its soul took birth.
Mhm.
Like when I examine my life for whatever reason, and this is something even Michael Murdad said, you know, we kind of feel what is our soul contract. We want to know what our soul contract is and what our soul group is, right? And he says, examine what is happening around you. And what I've examined is I attract a lot of people from German origin. Like my manager will be, his mother will be German and maybe the father is Spanish. Or I'll have a friend whose parents are German, right? Close friend.
Mhm.
So there's somebody or the other, and I feel I have something in my past life. Actually, it is more so to do with your past life. If you want to figure out what you were in your past life, see where the patterns are in your present life. What are the soul groups that you're attracting, right?
Absolutely.
So I think Summer said somewhere that she has a lot of Jewish people around where she lives. So that means she has some kind of a past life with people that are Jewish, right? Why did we attract that? Why did we attract that certain city in our present life? A certain group of people in our present life. So
Absolutely.
at some point in time, we can talk about it. Maybe next week we'd start to talk about the soul group and learning from our present life, learning about our past life, right? What can we detect about our past life? Maybe that's the question I have for April and Kelly and
Yeah,
Caesar next
that would
week.
be a really good topic. And
Right.
just realize, I feel like every single one of us came in with a gift. It's like a seed.
Mhm.
And when we do start noticing different things all our life, to me, I'm realizing that's my gift. I've always been attracted to nature. And then I'm realizing now I'm utilizing that with people and different things, and more things are coming together. And it's just amazing. And the word mirror was used by almost everybody tonight. And the reflection, it's so incredible. And things just start getting lighter and lighter in a deeper understanding as we commit ourselves and dive deeper. It's just an amazing, amazing path. So
Beautiful. Thank you. Like Eileen is German, right? 2.5 years ago, Parker couldn't understand, why am I attracted to Eileen, right? Why do I have so much of, she would say, you have such a simpacto relationship with Eileen. And I had known Eileen for maybe a month or so, but I know it has to do with that Germanic origin. I think April is German too. So it's like, I do see
mhm.
there may be like some mixed blood in me that is German. That's why I attract, or maybe in a past life I had something to do with Germany. But I do see you're German.
There you go.
Thank you, Ken. And you know, it was like incredible that I gave myself to Eileen. Like I was like so wanted her to be part of the Facebook Live Q&A. So insisted that she attend all the Facebook Live Q&As and coordinate the Facebook Live Q&As for us, right? And Parker couldn't understand it. Why do I have that? And even I couldn't understand it. Later on, at some point in time, Eileen told me that she has some, in one of the Facebook lives, she was talking about work ethic that she and her father have, that they work the gazillion hours, right? The 80, 90 hours a week. And that's a very German work ethic, to work a lot of hours. Okay, Patricia, you want to wrap it up? It's been, yeah, it's getting late.
I pressed the wrong button.
No worries. Thank you.
When I was reading it, I see that I wanted to just say, oh, hello, ego. It's an ego mind question, completely. So ego wants to figure it out. And until you experience it and actually be in the present, there's not really possibility to figure this out on that level. And that's one thing I understood. Experience. That's what we all need to do, because ego has words and tries to figure out concepts, but experience is beyond words. And then we try to share with each other the closest we can possibly get the experience. So, and I want to apologize for being a little mess today, but as Poonam knows, I got news from Poland today that my very close aunt passed. So I'm trying to figure out how to survive, because this is the first time. I mean, my grandma passed like 10 years ago, I think, or 7, something like that. And that was tough on me, very tough on me, but I think I mostly experienced it through grace, because I was already here in the United States, and she had like dementia. So I did get to see her last time I was in Poland, and I hugged her, but she didn't even know who I was. But then when I slept, when I got news that she passed, I was already back here in the United States, and I had a dream that I'm carrying her. Like I picked her up and carried her into the ocean, and she couldn't swim. So I guess that was her way. I'm sorry, but right now I can't breathe. So this is the experience. Like I know all of you experience losses in your life, very close losses. So I know that each one of us has to experience it in its own way. But I just want to know how to go from one moment to the next. When you're feeling through what you're feeling. And it's almost like she wasn't even my mother and my dad. You know, everybody else in my family is still alive, so I can't even imagine what's gonna happen. And I did experience some other losses, like not death, but my marriage, my job. So I don't know if any one of you would like to. I guess just your presence helps really today. That's why I didn't want to skip this. But I think going to the question, there's no shortcuts. Definitely no. Otherwise, we can't live. This is not life. And I know that my aunt lived fully. I mean, she had such a presence, and she didn't have any concept. She just lived. She didn't take any photographs, and she didn't even like anybody taking photographs of her, because I guess she had that very deep understanding that you live. You're not taking photographs and then looking at it and trying to remember the event. You just live in that moment, and once the moment is gone, you let go. So there's no reason to holding on to anything. And she was so funny, so full of life. She would turn everything into like a very happy, joke, but it will light up everybody's mood. Even my dad, who is like bipolar and very tough, would laugh. So it's gonna, just her being there in Poland, and I was able to Skype with her, was so lighting my life. So I'm just gonna miss her very much. Thank you for listening.
Our deepest condolences, Patricia. May her soul rest in peace. You know, one of the things that Sadhguru says, and these are rituals that we perform in India, is we want that soul to exit. The same thing, right? What April was talking about. The soul took birth here to learn unconditional love. And as it is exiting the body and is in that intermediary state, right? You want that soul to know of that unconditional love. So as much gratitude, and that's what the rituals, we have like a 13-day ritual, so many days ritual, 3rd day ritual. There are different rituals in when we cremate, after the cremation. Cremation itself is a ritual, right? But then there's a 13th day, they do a ritual. And my brother actually, for my mother, took her ashes to the Ganges, which is considered very sacred, and like let go of the ashes and perform the ritual there, right? Which is considered like, if you can, if for a Hindu life, if you can do that in that city of Varanasi, it's like the most sacred thing. Like you liberated yourself for so many lifetimes if you do it. And he did it for her. But that's what you want to let her spirit know, is of that love, of that gratitude, and leave, let go of that spirit with that sweetness. Drop that sweetness of unconditional love in that spirit, because that's what the lesson was, right? We all learned our lessons here to come to that presence, to that unconditional love.
Feeling this profound sadness and just tears pouring out. Is that the heaviness? Is that ego trying to hold on to something?
It's just grief.
It's a loss.
It's
a
just
loss.
grief. Yeah. Go ahead, April. Thank you.
It's a loss. So even though we are spiritual people, we are supposed to be enlightened, and we're supposed to be able to handle these things perfectly, right? Wonderfully. We know that the soul does not, but doesn't die. We are still human with emotions. We still have emotions. You're going to have emotions. That's part of the experience here, because we learn through our emotions. Those things that we hate, that we're running from, that we don't want to have, that's actually how we learn. If you had no emotions in life, what would you learn?
Not much.
So even though it is not one that we want, and it is heavy, you are still learning a tremendous amount, and you're sad because you are human, because you have an emotion. When my mom passed 7 years now, I was shocked at myself, because apparently I had some rules and I had some standards that I shouldn't be so sad because I'm supposed to be this counselor and this spiritual teacher. Why? I was standing outside of myself, watching myself, going, wow, you're really struggling. Like, I was kind of amazed that I was struggling as much as I was, but we do love and we do bond. And there is a separation. The process is to just be with the emotions, just be with them. We have this tendency to think that we need to run, we need to hide, we need to cover them up, we shouldn't have them. So what I do with my emotions, it's not that I don't have emotions, I have them. And I have some pretty tough ones, mostly because I chose to have so many people in my life this time. And I chose to love deeply. So I have emotions, but when I have them, I literally observe them and I say, wow, this is a pretty heavy emotion. And I say, okay, I'm just going to breathe through this. I'm going to breathe through this. And this is going to go away at some point. And then I do the processing that comes along with it. One of the biggest reasons for death is to appreciate life, is to appreciate the experience. And another thing is so we can get out of second grade. I'm not trying to be, facetious, like seriously. Sometimes we just need summer break. We need, right? But really, death always teaches us to appreciate life, to appreciate each other. And even though it's difficult, and I'm currently having to do that in my life with several different people where I'm like, okay, April, you have to find the gifts in the bad. What are the gifts? And there is always a stage in the lesson where I'm like, there's no gifts. There's nothing. There's no reason for this. There can't possibly be a reason for this. Is just ridiculous. And I truly mean that. Like, I am like, this is so ridiculous. What is good? But I always make myself and remember life ebbs and flows. It goes up and down. It's about positive and negative. And there is some grand plan and there is some positives. Whether that positive be you learn to appreciate each other, you learn to say hi, you learn to say I love you, you learn that life does have meaning. Whatever the gift is for you, you try to pull the gifts out of the bad. And when you said, I have this experience and then taking photographs and then the experience is gone, there's no reason to hold on to anything. Actually, those good experiences, those are the ones that, like, if you are having sadness, one of the things you do is you go back to that good time and you hold on to that emotional state. You put yourself back in that emotional state of happiness, of wholeness. So recently, your journey that you've had, put yourself back into those states that you've been able to connect with, of that deep peace and that deep love. You do hold on to them. You don't just let them go. You do hold on to them. Now, the mind likes to hold the negative in the forefront, right? It likes to run through the library and it picks out all the negative. But especially lately in your life, Patricia, with your growth, you have some really profound, peaceful moments. Go back into those. Okay. But mostly just know that it's okay. It's normal. You will heal. And it's a process. Okay. And just allow yourself to grieve. Allow yourself to do that. It's okay. So I hope your heart heals.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to what April was saying. So, to think that she left you a gift through this hurtful time, you will find the gift. And like we always say, our best lessons come from our most hurtful and darkest times. And this is one for you. So there's a gift there for you. I know it sounds crazy within that situation, but it would be
Thank you.
profound.
Thank
It's there. Well said, April. Beautiful. Awesome.
It's preparing you for something more stronger, Patricia, because like Caesar said, right? How many times has he said in the Facebook Live Q&A, how many relatives did you lose back to back, Caesar? Your mother, father, 5? So and look at him. He's still looking for exciting new things to do every day, right? So you can be that. He's exemplary in that, right? That's why it's like a very humbling, all of you, each and every one of you, like April for what she's going through, for Kelly and Kelly, what they've gone through, Caesar, Ken, all of you. Francesca with her challenges of the past year.
Right.
You with, it's like humbling, like so humbling.
It's
So
incredible.
eternally grateful to all of you. So
Mhm.
on that note, may her soul rest in peace, Patricia, and
Thank
send her lots and lots and lots of love from us as well. As the
Thank
spirit
much
exists.
for your love,
Thank
Yeah.
you.
for your love and compassion.
Many
You can
blessings,
call on
everyone.
any.
Mhm.
Eternally grateful. Bye. Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night. Good night, Patricia.
Bye.
Good night.